Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Damn, that was excellent. That's what we pay for. That's Game of Thrones. So, final episode of this season was wonderful. So, look, you should watch the full review there. It's on youtube.com/whattheflick. It'll also be put on here on our Facebook page as well. It's actually youtube.com/whattheflick show, because John Iadarola came from north of the wall to go do that review. I'm not kidding. We had sent him to the North Pole. Well, I mean, there's no wall, but still, he came back from the North Pole just to do this review. He's there with Matt Atchity, Brett, and all the other guys. They're going to do the full-blown Young Turks What the Flick review like we do it for every episode. Please watch every nuance of that. I'm out here in Dorne by myself, Cenk. Nah, well, okay, I'm not a bastard. Anyway, I'm out here in one of the provinces, so I can't help but do a review for you guys real quick to the best of my abilities. This is a short one, but I want to hit the main points here. First of all, dead dragon burning down the wall is one of the greatest things that's ever happened in humanity. Now, it's a good thing it's not in real humanity, otherwise we'd all be soon be dead, thanks to Cersei's treachery, which was wonderfully Game of Thrones. So, okay, that was so badass, there are no words for it. A dead dragon breathing fire ice to bring down the wall after 7 seasons of watching that wall. And remember, there's supposed to be some magic. John knows it better. Matt and John know it better. There's magic where the dead can't cross the wall, but the magic is in the wall. The wall doesn't exist anymore. Watching too long. Okay. So that was spectacular. All right. Now on to the other parts. John is the true king and meant to sit on the Iron Throne. Now, if you've been watching our reviews for a couple of years now, you know that we solved that a couple of years ago. But this is the final, and I like how they conveniently brought Samwell Tarly and the Three-Eyed Raven together to be like, oh, you saw that? Oh, well, you won't believe what I saw. So it was pretty convenient. But it was great to have that put together. So, by the way, Sansa Stark is now the true Lady of Winterfell, because Jon Snow is not a Stark or a Snow or a Sand. He is, as we correctly deduced earlier, a Targaryen, the lead Targaryen. Now, that makes that copulation that you saw there at the end between, I forget, Enoch Targaryen or whatever his first name is. She whispered it, I couldn't hear it. Again, John and Matt will know. Let's keep calling him Justice. Between Jon Snow and Daenerys, that is incest. Heaven forfend. Not on Game of Thrones. Remember, the Targaryens are supposed to do incest. So that is very Targaryen of them to do that. So they are now presumably the king and queen. We'll see how that plays out next year, but that's in essence it. But since we already knew that, that is less surprising. Them getting it on down below deck, we already saw that coming from a million miles away. In this season, we have that in the earlier reviews. It was nice to see nonetheless. I'm not going to say it wasn't. Anyway, so those were interesting. But the two things that we weren't sure about that I think are even more important than the dragon burning down the wall or Jon being the king, since we already knew that, is what happened to Baelish. I'm going to save that because that is so monumentally important, and what a payoff that was, okay? And, of course, what Cersei did. So, Tyrion going and convincing her to come back out. I mean, what part of this episode wasn't awesome? Okay, so she comes back out, and she's like, okay, we should all fight together. And everybody's like, yes, right? Psych. And you know, when she revealed to Jaime what her real plot was, I thought, shame, shame, shame. Ding, 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 ding. Not for her, for me, for not figuring that out. Come on, what am I, a sucker? What am I, an idiot like Jaime Lannister? How did I not see that coming? Of course, you can't trust Cersei. And of course she doesn't care about humanity, but I want you to understand that play. Because what she's saying is she's willing to risk all of humanity, worse than the Mad King that Jaime was a kingslayer for, that he slayed. Because he was going to light the city on fire. Cersei's willing to light all of humanity on fire. Because if they lose in the north, they then have that army with Jon Snow and all the others and Daenerys and all the dragons march south. They're all done for. Every single human being will die. She's willing to risk that on the hopes that Jon Snow and Daenerys will win, but will be greatly weakened. She brings in with the golden army that she paid for from the bank, and then she regains Westeros. It's actually not a bad plot. If you were a terrible, terrible human being who didn't mind risking all of humanity for your power. And that right there is Cersei Lannister in a nutshell. The only thing when she revealed the plot, I was like, of course, what was I thinking, right? But I loved it. That's why Game of Thrones is the best show on the planet. They had some hero shields earlier in the season where Jaime should have died in the water and Jon Snow should have died in the water, and that greatly annoyed me. The dragon came at the last second. What is this, Starsky and Hutch? So I didn't like that stuff at all. But in this last episode, boy, did they bring it back, and they brought it back top notch. This is top shelf stuff. So that play by Cersei was great. The only thing I was surprised by is that she didn't kill Jaime. I thought for sure she was going to kill him. So now he knows her plot. So that's a pretty big weakness for her to let him go and tell the others what her plot is. I mean, I thought she had the balls to actually follow through and kill him. But I guess she was bluffing, which I'm surprised by, okay? So, but anyway, I was like, oh, thanks God Jaime's still alive. And he's going up north, and having him fight with the others will be fantastic, but he's not bringing the Lannister army, which is enormously important. Final thing is Baelish. Look, we had a string of different interesting theories. You know, we think that, it's now that we know Jon Snow is for sure the king, you're not going to be surprised to find out that that's the leading theory. They win, he's the king, etc., right? But my favorite side theory was, what if this whole story is actually about Baelish and Varys? Varys is the light, Baelish is the darkness. Either chaos is terrible for humanity or it's a ladder. Either good wins or evil wins. And the very last scene of Game of Thrones is Littlefinger sitting on the Iron Throne. That is not going to happen. So I am both ecstatic about, he's actually arguably worse than Cersei. The worst guy on the planet dying in a wonderful piece of Littlefinger-esque play. We were wondering if the Stark girls were going to do that. We talked about it in previous reviews. It turns out they did do it. The way they did it was perfect. And him begging for his life was perfect. That revenge was perfect. But a part of me was a little heartbroken because I love Littlefinger as a character. I mean, what an amazing character in TV history. And so that side theory is now dead, along with Littlefinger. And you know, Vilms, right? and the most important part of Vilms, if you've been watching all these reviews, violence, intrigue, lines, and there were some great lines in here, especially about the Cockless Army, mystery and sex. The most important part is intrigue. And with Littlefinger, we have a little less intrigue. With him dead, we have a little less intrigue in Game of Thrones, which is a shame. So I was sad to see him go in a sense, but boy, they made that payoff worth it. You know, I said, you know, not enough main characters died in this season. Well, they at least gave us a Littlefinger death there, and that is huge. That's enough for a whole season. The way they did it was amazing and perfectly befitting. So both excited, as you can tell, and a little heartbroken, which is also Game of Thrones. So perfect. 10 out of 10. God bless this show. The best show that has ever been.